Okay, so I guess we're going to go ahead and start. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
We can.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if you guys can hear me. So this is the last panel of the day, I believe, resources to empower caregivers. As I mentioned earlier and you saw on the screen, I'm Rhonda Moeller from Whole Plant Access for Autism. We have Jason David from Jaden's Juice. We also have Vicki Lynn, who is a caregiver, and she's going to talk a little bit about her story here in a few minutes as well. I'm going to start today and discuss caregiver self-care, which is an interesting topic because I admit I'm not the best at doing that myself, but I think it's an important topic to explore. We all have to take care of ourselves, and so we can take care of our family members that need it. So most of us at some point in our lives are caregivers. We take care of somebody who needs help. Either it's going buy groceries for them, cooking for them, laundry, cleaning house, dressing them, showering them, giving them medicine, maybe through injections, feeding tubes, making appointments, acting as a chauffeur. So at some point in your life, you may experience doing this for somebody you care about, and it can be overwhelming. Small doses of that, doing that for your child who maybe doesn't have medical issues, that's, pretty normal. Doing that every once in a while for someone who needs help, that's pretty normal. But when you're doing this every single day, day in and day out, vacations are almost non-existent. It becomes a lot to juggle that demand with your own life and what the needs that you have as a caregiver, as a person, as a human being. So it gets to be a little bit overwhelming at times. So there are some tips that I wanted to kind of go over on how to handle being a caregiver. Hopefully this will hit home for some of you guys. And I know when I was going through some of this stuff myself, I was realizing that I need to do a better job of this as well. I have a daughter with autism who's 10, and she takes up a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And I admit, like I said before, I don't always put myself first. I tend to put her needs first, and that can wear on a person over time. So just some tips to go over quickly. So first thing you need to do is understand that you can't care for someone if you don't care for yourself. There's that, I think it's the image that you have of a plane going down, and you need to, as a parent, they tell you when you're flying on a plane and they go over the safety instructions, as a parent, put on your oxygen mask first. You need to do that before you put on your child's oxygen mask. You have to take care of yourself, because if you pass out, then your child has no chance. So you need to take care of yourself. And that's an important lesson I think a lot of us need to learn, so that you can be healthy, you can live hopefully a long life, you can take care of your child, but you have to take care of yourself. You have to give yourself that oxygen so that you can survive and you can help your child. Otherwise, you're both in a lot of trouble at that point. And remembering that the only person you can change is yourself. I know a lot of families deal with family members that don't understand their situation. They don't understand what's going on with your life, and there can be some hostility between family members. There can be some issues that happen with family. You have to let those roll. You have to let those go. You have to understand that there's only one person that you're really in charge of, and that is yourself. And you can't change your loved one, the person who you're taking care of. And as much as we all would love to snap our fingers and make them healthy and make them 100% whole being and no illness or no disability or completely independent, there's just no magic pill out there right now. Cannabis is great. Don't get me wrong. I love cannabis for my daughter. I love what it can do for my family and my child, but it's not curing autism any day soon. So we have to, learn to just, just keep going. And again, you can't change your child. You can't change their situation. You can only change yourself and the way you think. And I always stress this with everybody that all my friends, all my coworkers that I deal with, and I find this one huge for me, find opportunities to laugh. I love watching funny movies. I love reading funny stories. I love just being able to laugh every day. And I think without that, life becomes a little bit monotonous and hard to kind of make your way through. So I try and incorporate that in my life as much as possible. I watch those silly movies. I watch those funny TV shows, and I let myself just let it go. And it's a great feeling. And I think it's one that we all should enjoy from time to time. Getting away from your caregiver duties from time to time, I think that's important. And I know a lot of us here, if you're in the state of California, we have what's called respite care through the regional centers, if you're involved with the regional centers. So we have people that'll come in and take care of your child. And I encourage everyone to access that when you can and take a break and just go and do something that you enjoy. Leave the house, leave your child in someone's care who can take care of them, who knows how to take care of your child, and just take care of yourself and do something that you enjoy so that you can release some of that stress, some of that just everything that piles on your shoulders every day. I think it's an important thing to do. Maybe not every day, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, whatever you can figure out with your schedule. And then, of course, what's important about this panel, again, we're talking about support groups, and I think support groups are huge for our families. Just knowing that there are other people like you, there are other families in your situation, there are other resources out there for you, that to me is huge. And I know I've joined probably a dozen support groups that are local to me. And I read through their posts and I read through their literature and I go through their files. And that to me is just, it's helped me tremendously. And I think if you can go to a support group in person, that's great. If that's what you can do, that's, you want to do the in-person interaction, that's, that's fine, that's awesome. But there are also support groups that are online. I happen to host one, Whole Plant Access for Autism, started as a support group on Facebook. We have 26,000 members, and sometimes we talk about autism, sometimes we talk about being a parent, sometimes we talk about cannabis, sometimes we talk about the stress of distance learning right now and how hard it is for our families. And we talk about just everything. And it's an amazing feeling to see other families comment and say that they're going through the exact same thing and that they appreciate what you have to say and that they're looking also for feedback. And you see that you're not alone. You're not alone in this struggle. You're not alone dealing with this by yourself. You are amongst people that know how you feel. I think learning as much as you can about your loved one's condition helps you to understand how to take care of them better. So for me, I have a science background, so I just dived into the science of autism, and I learned so much about how her brain chemistry is, a little bit different. And that helped me understand why she does certain things. And for me, that was, that helped me realize that it wasn't just my fault. Like things that she did were not because I was not giving her enough love, or I wasn't, hugging her enough, or it wasn't that I wasn't, feeding her the right foods. Maybe there was something a little bit off with her brain chemistry. And for me, that gave me a sense of relief that this wasn't my fault. This wasn't something that I had done to her. And it just gives you, when you learn about the illness, when you find out about it, when you join these support groups, when you do your reading, maybe pick up a book about whatever condition you're dealing with your child, you can learn techniques to make yourself a better caregiver as well. And I think that's important when you're trying to take care of a child, to be the best that you can be. Of course, in the free time that you have, which I know is very minimal. So, I wish we had all the free time in the world to study. I wish I had all the free time in the world to study autism. I would be reading articles all day long. But even I know that my time, when she goes to bed is when I have my free time. And that's when I start to do my reading. That's when I start to do my research. And then I have a few hours of that and then I fall asleep. So, what can I say? I wish I had all day to do it, but, realistically I don't. So I do the best that I can. Again, I give myself a little bit of grace and I do what I can. And, I try my best. So one thing that I know I'm really bad at is when people offer help. I'm more of a person that says I'm more of a I can do it all kind of person. I can do it all. I don't need anybody's help. And I'm really bad at accepting help from family, from friends. And I know that about myself, and I'm trying to make that change. But for others, maybe, when people offer you help, it's okay to say yes. It's okay to make a list of things that you're comfortable having others help with. Maybe you don't want them putting medicine in, or giving your child medicine. Maybe you don't want them putting food in the tubes, or maybe you don't want them feeding them because your child's extremely picky eater. That's okay. Make a list of things that you're comfortable with. And when someone offers help, don't be afraid to say yes. And when no one offers help, don't be afraid to ask, because I think people in your circle may be willing to help, but they don't know how to extend that olive branch. So you need to be able to learn how to ask for help. And I know that's one of the things that I need to work on. So I'm not saying that, everyone needs to be doing this right now, but it's a good skill to have. It's a good skill to practice. It's a good skill to try, and to know that there are people that are willing to help you. You just have to say yes and don't say no like I do, or ask for the help. Again, you'll be amazed at people's willingness to help you out in a bad situation. I'll give you an example of one thing that I did this summer. My daughter, because of the pandemic, she was without a pool. And I usually go to a water park, and we did not have a pool. So we asked our neighbors in our little community group, and we had a neighbor come forward, and we are now using their pool. And I honestly, I was that desperate to do that, but I didn't care at that point because my kid needed that. So I know I'm running a little bit out of time because I only have 15 minutes to talk. So I'm going to just go through this real fast. Use community resources if you have them: respite care, Meals on Wheels, paratransit, daycare programs. Find something you really like to do, and make sure you find time to do it on a regular basis. I've learned to read, not that I'm going to read. I've found reading books again. I've actually started reading books for pleasure again, which I haven't done in a long time. But with everything going on right now in this crazy world, I honestly can't watch TV. Social media is hard for me right now. So I'm reading books, and that's where I'm finding my me time. And I'm doing that every day. And it's something that I love. And if you like to read or knit or garden, you should find that time for yourself. And remember, most importantly, that you are loved and appreciated even when your loved one maybe can't tell you that, and honor the nurturing and responsibility and caring and support that you're providing to your loved one, and consider it as a gift. You're giving them a gift. And know that you are not alone in this world. There's other parents like you. Join a support group, join in person, social media, wherever you can find it. And one last thing I want to mention is cannabis, of course, helps. I never knew how much it helped. It helped my daughter, but it also helped me. I have extreme anxiety. I had a horrible sleeping pattern, and I just needed that in my life, and I didn't realize that until it helped my daughter. And then I realized I needed to do the same thing for myself. And so if you are able to, if you can get access to it, cannabis is amazing. And I really encourage you to explore that if you are willing to go down that route. So I'm going to stop yabbering, and I'm going to introduce the next speaker, who's going to talk about support groups. So Jason David, he has begun treating his son Jaden, who has Dravet syndrome, with cannabidiol when he was about 4 years old. He obtained his first CBD tincture from a dispensary in Oakland, California, and documented the first 4 days of treatment on a television show called Weed Wars. So now Jaden is taking his own brand of CBD medicine called Jaden's Juice. Since then, Jason has opened a cannabis club for children in Modesto, California, where kids can obtain CBD oil and families can network with others who are using cannabis products to treat their children. So I'm gonna give it over to Jason. He's got 15 minutes, Jason. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, how you guys doing? You hear me or?
We can hear you.
Okay, I was just making sure. I'm not really good with Zoom. I'm not computer savvy at all. I'm sorry about that. First thing I want to say is, Rhonda, I listened to what you were saying, and you had a lot of good points. I'm very proud of you. You're doing a really good job, and you're right. The caregiver needs care. When a child is sick, the whole family is sick. We all suffer, and it's not even just a child. If anyone in your family is sick, we all suffer. We have to help ourselves to help out our children. When our children feel our bad energy, we're transferring that to our children. And when they feel us overwhelmed or stressed out or anxiety, absolutely, they feel that. You have to find a balance in life and learn how to take care of yourself too, because once you start crumbling, you take your kid down with you. I really believe that. I felt that myself. This experience, it's our experiences in life that we learn from, and we can't keep on making the same mistakes, and we have to kind of fix that and go forward. And if we want to help our children out, we got to help ourselves out first so we can help our children. And there is times that, you're saying, like, take a break. If it's 1 day a month, one day a week, whatever you can fit in, you should. Absolutely. And we, the funny thing is, when I was younger, and Jaden wasn't doing very well, and I went to a nightclub one time, and I was sitting outside, and I was smoking a cigarette, and someone came up to me, some guy came up to me, and I was crying outside. Tears were coming out my eyes. And some guy I went to high school with, this like a young tough guy or whatever, comes up to me and says, "Hey, Jason," he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, man." I said, "My son's not doing well in life." And I came out. This is my first time coming out in a year and a half. Going out and trying to have fun. I couldn't have fun because he was on my mind the whole time, and I just felt guilty. And the guy goes to me. He goes, "Jason," he goes, "I want to tell you something." He goes, "You see all those guys inside? They're out partying every single weekend. They don't even know their kids. They don't spend time with their kids. Their kids are healthy. They get to hang out with them. And your son's dying. You're going out there and fighting and trying to learn more and trying to help out not just Jaden but other kids. And if anyone deserves a day off, it's you, And he had a great point, and that kind of made me think of, he's right. I can't just, the people that are always out, or it's okay with them. They're not even helping out their kids or doing anything. They don't even know who their kids are. And then I'm sitting here stressed out one day because I take one break, and I'm overwhelmed and feeling guilty and crying outside of a nightclub. So we do have to take care of ourselves, Rhonda. You're absolutely right. When I feel better and I feel like I've got rid of my stress or anxiety or release, like you said, I can come back, be a better parent for my son. I'm happy and he's happy. We're trying to be, try to transfer that good energy. Absolutely. you're talking about support groups. Yeah, we do support groups at Jaden's Journey. That's what our focus is. We want to give back to community. How I learned how to help out Jaden was I stopped listening to the doctors. This is my personal experience. I'm going to tell you guys. Some people think I'm crazy, but I'm just going to tell you how it is, what helped me change Jaden's life. Every time I listened to doctors, I made Jaden worse. Every time I went to seminars across the country for Dravet syndrome and epilepsy and all this, I feel like they're just selling us on drugs, on pharmaceuticals. They told us one time about the magic 3. These magic 3 drugs are supposed to be magic for our children, but really the magic part about it was our kids survived taking them. Their liver, their kidney, their guts, their brains, all different channel blockers, messing up our children, sedating them, making them drug addicts. I mean, let's just be honest. We just fall into that trap. That's what I did. I was giving Jaden 22 pills a day. I did make a lot of mistakes because I didn't do the research. I just listened to what the doctor said because the doctor knows it all. And every time I did go to the doctor, he's always telling me, you're a first-time parent. I wrote the book on epilepsy. I have an education about this. And my first question now is, as what I do is I not just do support groups, I do free consultations. The first thing I ask a patient is well, how's your relationship with your doctor? And what I hear the most is my doctor doesn't like me and I don't like my doctor. Well, you fire them and find another doctor, a doctor that's going to support you, first thing. And when I learned from that is that we have to make smart decisions, as in, of course, we're going to try on error things to help our children and do these different things. And we want to make decisions that are going to help our children out. So what I started doing is going to these support groups, and I started asking, instead of asking the drug dealer, the doctor is telling me to take this drug, I started going to support groups with adults that had epilepsy. And I was asking them, how does Depakote make you feel? How does Topamax make you feel? How does this make you feel? What do you think triggers your seizures? How do you get off of it? What's going on? Because they're the ones living it. It's like going to the streets. I lived in a bad neighborhood as I growing up. And if you look at the drug dealers on the streets that are selling drugs, they're not going to tell you, hey, my drug is bad for you. They're going to tell you, hey, it's good for you to sell it to make money. Well, same thing with the doctors. They're doing the same thing. I mean, I get it. Some are there to help and some are there, I totally get that. I'm not saying all doctors are bad, but there's a lot of doctors that have that ego factor, that God complex, and they know it all. They don't. When you go to a doctor, now what I tell people is when you go to a doctor, you ask them, show me your good results. Because when you go to a mechanic, you want to see the cars being fixed. That's when you go to that mechanic, you tell people about that mechanic. I was going to a doctor at Stanford 10 years ago, before I started cannabis. And when I started going to every time I went to his office, every single kid there was doing horrible. I asked him, show me the proof, show me the proof of the kids doing good. And he said, I don't have none. And you wrote the book on epilepsy. What did you write the book on epilepsy about? About making children worse or better? Because I want to see it in front of my face. I feel like science is biased now. I know everyone's going to think I'm crazy, but science is very biased. I have a friend that works as a top researcher in a university. I can't tell you which one. She has a kid with epilepsy. And she told me, she goes, they can do what they believe me. Money talks and BS walks. They can make things happen. And so for me, I want to do my own research. I started doing support groups. I started asking these patients how they felt. And that's what helped me get Jaden off pharmaceuticals and give them cannabis. Cannabis is not one size fits all, of course. It's all trial and error. That's why we bring these support groups together and these parents together at our store. This is before COVID. Hopefully after this COVID mess, and hopefully when people aren't paranoid or scared, we can get back into this thing and build our community again, because our community was amazing. We had families. What was nice about it is our support groups is we'd have bouncy houses, face painters there. We'd have food for the families. We'd discount our medicine. We'd have Reiki for the parents, masseuses for the parents. We had photo booths for the kids. We had all these different things going on. We'd have in between about 150 to 250 people show up during Thanksgiving time. We give out turkeys to all the families that had disabled children to show up to our events. What it did to bring not just the children together that have different disabilities, and the parents that were learning little pieces of the puzzle that they can get together, because you never know magnesium. It's not just cannabis. There's so many pieces of the puzzle you don't put together to kind of help your child out. So we're all learning from each other and kind of putting each piece of the puzzle together, because our kids are like a broken puzzle piece. What we try to do is we have to put them back together. We have to figure out what's going to work and what isn't, but we have to trial and error one thing at a time, of course. But this is how we learn, is from other people living with their experiences. So for these support groups that we do, one of my favorite things that I could tell you is there's a story about 2 little girls came up to me one time, and And they're like, Jason, we love you. And I said, oh, thank you. I go, what made you guys say that? So because they're caregivers now too, these little girls, for their brother that has epilepsy, that's severely disabled in a wheelchair. So they said, we came out here and people weren't looking at our brother differently. Okay. People weren't, it's not just that, we found other kids that are our age that are caregivers that are doing the exact same thing. And we have new friends now that can relate, and no one's looking at each other's brothers, siblings different and nothing like that. So even the siblings need love too. And they need that help because they're caregivers too. So it's a whole family thing what we're trying to do and to bring our community together. But it's literally amazing. I love seeing it. We always have good energy. It's weird because we have so many kids with epilepsy there. A lot of them have seizures every day. And when they're there, I don't remember anyone having a seizure at our support groups. But it's not just for epilepsy. We do epilepsy and autism support groups. I've had the Vax bus at my store filming. We've had over 300 families come for the Vax bus because Jaden was vaccine injured. So we film there too for that. And we also do veteran support. We were doing veteran support groups every single month for PTSD. I had chiropractors coming in from the Bay Area that had like 10, 15 chiropractors come in, do chiropractic work on our veterans there. On the weekends, we'd have 200 to 250 veterans show up every weekend or every month when we do it once a month. So it's just bringing our community together. Our experience is going to make a difference in everyone. We learn what works and what doesn't work from each other. And people that are really caring, that love their kids, there's no agenda to doing this. We see our doctors once every 2 to 4 months. And what they do, here's a drug, see you later. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it is. Or, hey, I don't know. We don't know. This is what it is. Well, what I know is I want to get my son better. What I know is someone else's experience might help me. So that's why we do what we do. And for me, seeing success, like you said it earlier, there's nothing more better than seeing your kid do good. When your kid's not doing good, there's no torture in the world that's worse than that. Kick me in my face, beat me up, do whatever you want, take everything you want from me. I don't care. But when my son is suffering, there's nothing worse in the world that can hurt me, period. I do have a lot of faith and hope. I'm not going to push my faith on everyone, but I have a lot of faith and hope, and that's what helps me out. And I never stop having that. And whenever I do start breaking down, I do start even thinking or questioning it, I see things get worse. But when I put all my faith there, and I know that I always ask God, I say, hey, I could do what I can, or if the rest is up to you. But if whatever you want, I'll do it. Just show me the direction. And when he shows me signs, he always leads me the right direction. It just takes time, and patience is a virtue. So for me, everything's kind of a learning experience. I always hear people saying, I'm an expert at this, expert at that. When someone says I run away from fast as possible, no one's expert at anything. We learn, and we're all learning in this world on an everyday basis. And everyone tells their experience, and we all figure it out from each other. So for me, that's why we do our support groups, is bringing families together, because you never know, one piece of the puzzle might be found to make someone else's life change for the better. So, and is there any questions? Or did I miss anything that I was supposed to say? Because I'm new to this, so I apologize.
I'm looking through the questions on the chat. I don't see any questions. Everyone's just, putting out their support for what you're saying. Everyone's agreeing that, self-care is mandatory. Parents have been the best source of advice for cannabis dosing, and I agree. I learned, I had a great doctor. Dr. Goldstein was my daughter's doctor, but I also learned a lot from just talking to other parents who had done this before me and who had some advice for me. And that's how I learned how to get my daughter to a place where she was successful. Plus, it helped having Dr. Goldstein with us, but it was key. Like that was needed. It wasn't until we did a support group and had people just brainstorming together and throwing out ideas and saying, hey, I'm seeing this with my daughter, what do you think? And then everyone puts out, hey, try this, try that, try this. And it may be overwhelming, but it's good to kind of just throw out your thoughts and work through it together. And again, that's what that support group is about. Either in person, like the way you do it, which I think is amazing. And God, I want to go there and do that. That sounds like an amazing support group. I wish I could go. Or the ones that are online. Everyone's there to help each other. And I think the key of this for everybody is that we're not alone. And if you feel alone, you really need to reach out to others, support groups, to family members, to, your resources in your community, and just find something, because this is hard. This is hard.
Very hard.
And even how you said you broke down crying at the club. I mean, you know, I was just crying yesterday because distance learning is hard. Distance learning is really hard. And I was crying yesterday because I just was like, I don't know how much more I can do, but I just keep going. You know, my family's here this weekend, and I'm just talking it out with them and telling them all my issues, and they're helping me, you know, brainstorm. And that's just, you know, you have to reach out. You can't face this all alone. You have to, you know, reach out for help. You have to ask for it. You have to talk to others. And with support, we're all going to get through this. We're all going to get through this. In these crazy times right now, we're all going to get through this. And Jason, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I
Thank you.
have heard nothing but good things about Jaden's Juice. I have heard nothing but good things about your support group. I have heard nothing but good things about you. So I wanted to thank you again for coming on the panel and telling us a little bit about your story and about what you offer to people up in the Bay Area. It's like, I wish there was a Jaden's Journey cannabis club in every city. I really wish there was, because we all need that.
It would be fun. You know, if you know, before it turned from Proposition 64 to from 215 to 64, it was a different situation. I could do so much more. It's so sad what's happened. You know, the switch from 64 to 215. I'm a 215er. I love the medical part. It was different. The taxes weren't killing everybody. You know. And if my wish would have came true, and you know, I would love to make like a special needs place with all toys for kids in one area, and just everything for free, just to help out the kids and the families, sensory stuff, and just that was my real goal, like just to make everyone's life better. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys remember Patch Adams, but Patch Adams healed people from laughter and being happy. And I think that makes a real big difference of transferring good energy to our children and keeping them happy. You know, my goal in life is giving the best quality of life I can for my son, and hopefully for others if I can help them out. But that's my goal. I hate seeing people suffer. I hate seeing people overdosing on drugs and pharmaceutical and sedated and, you know, all that good stuff. So for me, I mean, that's where we wish we'd be at. It's a really beautiful place. You know, God willing, some kind of miracle happens. I hit the lottery or something one day. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, one day something hits, I'm gonna do something big. I would really love to do something like that for our community. You know, and get our families closer and closer, because we need the help, we need the love, and our children are angels. They don't know what sin is, so they deserve better. They deserve better. And
well, keep playing the lotto.
So, but thank you for having me on here.
Keep playing the lotto.
Yeah. I don't play that much, but that'd be great if I did. You know.
Keep playing it, and we'll fingers crossed. Again, thank you, Jason. We're gonna go on to our next speaker, but we're gonna circle back with questions at the end, so don't go anywhere. Yes, thank you, Jason. That's amazing what you do. Thank you again. So our next panelist is Vicki Lynn. Vicki Lynn. Thank you, Vicki. She's amazing. I met her at the last Americans for Safe Access conference that we had last year. Her talk was just very inspiring. Vicki Lynn is a 20-year executive recruiter. For 10 years, she worked in the therapy world, placing physical, occupational, and speech therapists in educational and clinical settings throughout the country for the special needs population. The last 5, she's worked with executives in other industries, including the cannabis and hemp space. She's rolled her life up 5 years ago and moved to Sonoma County, California, where she sought out and successfully found resources for her epileptic daughter. Having secured those resources, she's back in her home state of Alabama. Hooray! Writing the next chapter of her life. So without further ado, I'll turn over to Vicki.
Thank you so much. And Jason, feel free to keep your mug up there, because it's really great to meet you and pretty great to be on this panel with you, quite frankly. So anyways, hi.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rhonda. I am a recruiter. It's what I truly love to do. But I've had another profession over the last 20 years, and that's being full-time medical advocate to my daughter, Aubrey. And I can completely relate to the burnout. There were times when I just felt like I couldn't go on much longer after 20 years of this, you know, as a single mom. But to just talk about how Aubrey got her start. And I just want to, my heart goes out there to all caregivers that are advocating and working, and especially to those single parents out there, because it's tough. It's really hard if you don't have somebody helping you with that. So I just want you to know that my heart knows this. Aubrey was vax damaged at age 5. The MMR booster shot kicked off her illness, and I certainly won't go into semantics on whether to give vaccines or not. That's a very, very personal decision, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but that's what started our journey into epilepsy. She contracted acute disseminated encephalomyelitis, and I was noticing that was one of Dr. Sulak's showings on the chart, is that was up there. So she became damaged at that point, and they sent us on the anti-epileptic drug hunt, and then we went on the surgery route. So surgery number 1 was unsuccessful, and then surgery number 2 was damaging. So she went in normal, and she came out reading, she was able to read Harry Potter when she went in, and then when she came out of seizure, she had cognitive damage, executive function damage. She has a hemianopsia, meaning that she's blind to the right in both eyeballs, and she had a stroke, and she had traumatic brain injury. So, and we were in Alabama, so it was grim. She reached her teens, and she was on the cocktail of poison that they give them. And she smoked marijuana for the first time, and I noticed, I didn't know that she was smoking, but I noticed a marked difference in her sadness, and she was eating and this sort of thing. So she definitely had an improvement. So I started doing research. I learned about Charlotte Figge's story, and I woke up and realized there was a CBD movement out there. So I sold my home and packed everything that I had left into 2 suitcases and moved to Sonoma County. So we started with cannabis, and it's taken us 5 years to find the right doses of everything. I wish that I could say that she were pharma free, but she's not. She's been back to the hospital, and they took everything away, including cannabis, and the pharma would not hold her solely. And I've seen where cannabis will not hold her solely. She needs a blend of both. But we found the pharmaceutical that works for her, that seems to cause the least amount of damage that we've noticed. And so anyways, that's where she's at. Today she's on 600 milligrams a day of a 4-to-1 blend. That's 4 being more CBD dominant and 1 being the THC piece. But she really does love the THC, and it is a part of her regimen. She's 26 years old, and if she's unstable, she smokes, and I encourage that. Wish she'd vape, but that's okay. It's her choice. It's her body. She's not completely seizure free. But without her current regime, she would loop from one seizure to the other, and life would definitely be unsustainable. So with the combo of pharma, food, water, electrolytes, and stress management, she is doing better, and we're keeping her out of the hospital. And I just got a note, or I learned the other day that she's doing better since I left on her regime, and it's probably because I'm not there to trigger her. So anyways, but yeah, I left California in September. I'm back in Alabama for as long as I can be. We'll see. I'm enjoying this, and transition is what I'm here to talk about today. And I did do, I put a PowerPoint presentation together, and when you guys see it, you'll know that I'm better at recruiting than I am at PowerPoint, but that's all right. But let's go ahead and move on into that, because what I want to talk about is transitioning from pediatrics into adults, because this is something that needs to be talked about. I did not get a manual when I started transitioning. There's your pause, Jeff. Thanks. So I love throwing this chart up because it gives me great pleasure to put bad high school pictures up for Aubrey. We have a little antagonistic relationship between the two of us, but we have such an incredible bond. We're just the best of buddies. We've had a blast in California, Aubrey and I did. But the point of this chart is to show that they do go from where you are the advocate for them and you're making all the choices to what you went and got yourself a tattoo. Okay, well, it's an adult decision. And is it what I would have done? No, it's really big. But you know what? It has turned out to be beautiful and I love it. So, but it was her choice to do that. And so, you know, the point is that they do get there and they want their own independence and they want to make their own choices. Even if you've got a nonverbal child that's going into adulthood, these principles continue. They want to have their choice, and they want to have, and it's good boundaries. It's just these are principles that move through no matter what their challenges are as these beloved special people that we're raising. So I want to talk about HIPAA law, HIPAA privacy law. And the main thing that I want you to take away from this slide is HIPAA law and the age of consent. So whatever state you're in, if you are a full-time caregiver of your child, you need to Google what the age of consent is in your state. Oddly enough, in the state of Alabama, it is 14. So I didn't get much notice on that. And when Aubrey turned 14 and we went to the next doctor's appointment, the doctor looked at Aubrey and said, "Do you want your mother in the room with us?" So what that means is that what we really need to do is be prepared for that, because in the eyes of the law, when your child reaches that age of consent, they can lock you out of the conversation. It can just be them and not you. And I can think of a lot of reasons that things can go bad, and most of them start with ALABAMA in the medical practice that we've experienced here. But anyways, so there are ways that you can take care of that. You can either conserve them if you know they will never be able to make those medical decisions on their own. You can create a medical directive, or they can sign paperwork, which is that's the way that Aubrey and I have handled it. They have to sign paperwork for every single medical professional that they see. That's worked well for us, but I would recommend that you talk to an intellectual and developmental disabilities lawyer. They can handle educating you on what your rights are, what their rights are, and how to talk to your child about this and how to get their consent if you need it. And then talk to rehabilitation centers and departments of mental health. But start doing your homework well in advance. So I always get to talk about the tough topics because I have navigated clumsily through all of this and have made many mistakes. So some of the tough topics that I want to mention is that don't wait until they're 18 to have that adult-child talk. And I am going to talk about females here specifically because they're going to need an OBGYN and you're going to have to talk about that. Oddly and strangely enough, in the state of Alabama, and you guys are never going to want to come to this state when I'm done, but the OBGYNs never told me, and she was on a couple of different anti-epileptic drugs. I used the Implanon in her arm, and I used several other methods that were hormone-based birth control. And guess what? There is a whole list of pharmaceutical drugs that will make your child, will make their birth control null and void. And nobody told me that. So these are topics to be discussed both with the doctors and with your children, should they be independent enough to have these options. The other thing, of course, is sign up for disability before they're adults. So get that started. Don't wait. And then prepare, a trust, establish powers of attorney. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about what's going to happen if you were to suddenly depart the planet, but these are things that you really do need to talk about. And adult doctor choices is a big deal. When you go from the pediatric world into the adult world, you know, I think Jason really touched on that a bit. Finding an adult doctor choice that you love it can be really, really challenging. We really sought long and hard, and we're still looking for a PCP at this point. We had a primary care physician that looked at Aubrey and said, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this list of drugs. I will not be writing these prescriptions. So you better find yourself a great neurologist. So that is when I listened to Aubrey, and she said, I want to go to UCSF. But before I chose UCSF, I looked at their epilepsy department. I Googled all of those doctors. I looked up all of their, you know, their journaling and what they did and what they published and who they were and what they stood behind before I made the choice and asked to be in that department. But it takes time to get in. There are lists, and especially now with COVID, it can be a challenge to navigate that. So start that early. Don't wait until they're 18. Do that about 3 years ahead of time. And also keep in mind that if you've got an adult child that is, you know, Aubrey's got a high IQ, but she's medically damaged in a lot of ways. She's medically fragile and medically challenged. So that makes it difficult for her, and not to say that she doesn't have cognitive problems. So just keep in mind that the longer that these children bear under the weight of this, the more they're going to need both psychology and psychiatry. So check out the facility that you go to, and if you choose a university medical hospital, see if they have psychology and psychiatry that is tied in, because if that psychiatrist wants to prescribe a drug, you want that neurologist to be able to talk to them. Ideally, you'd want the PCP, the primary care physician, in that conversation as well, but often they're too darn busy. They don't want it. And I really only want to take Aubrey to the PCP if she's got anything that needs like an antibiotic. I really don't want to involve them too much. The best luck that I've had in finding PCPs is using osteopaths. So if you can find an OD, I was really excited to remember that Dr. Sulak is an OD because he's amazing. But of course, he took himself, I believe, out of that role where he takes insurance, and he's on a different level, if I'm understanding his practice. But you know, really do your research on all of them. So reaching potential. There's so many services out there for really in the autistic community that I've seen, and those with intellectual disabilities to help them reach their potential. Less for kids with medical fragile, because it would take them going, and it would take them being able to go, and consistency and that sort of thing. But the local junior colleges have got some fantastic programs. The rehab centers can help your kids find jobs, even mental health departments, and I'm talking about in every state. Yeah, in every state. I will say that California is the gold standard for services, but every state has got its version of that, even Alabama. For instance, my sister has got a daughter that requires 24/7 care, but you know, she can also work. So they found her a job at Kroger, and she is able to. She's been there. She just celebrated her 12th year there, and she's just this ray of sunshine. And she does the bagging, and she's got customers that come in and say, I want her to shop with me, and she'll. And Kroger's great about hiring kids with disabilities. They'll allow them to, they make special exceptions for them. So they'll be like, okay, Heather, this customer's calling for you. And so it just makes her feel like a star, a rock star, you know, and I think that's just so important. But helping your child to find that can be a challenge. And for us, it has been a challenge in our life. If you as the parent are the bow and they as the child are the arrow, it's your job as the parent to take them and put them in that bow and allow them to choose what direction they're going in and pull back hard and then let go. And that last part can be probably the most challenging piece that you can do, is letting go. I looked at letting go of Aubrey years before I was actually able to leave the state. And those that know me and love me can tell you that I gripped until the end. And but she's there and I'm here, and I actually did it. And it wasn't easy. So letting go, and even what it was that she wanted to do, modeling was not something that I would have chosen, but she did. And she's great at it. She's great at it. When her body allows her to do the modeling, and she's got another modeling shoot coming up in October. When her body allows her to do it, it's an amazing thing to watch. So letting them choose and talking to them, if they've got, they all have got ways of communicating, even if they've got major challenges. I've got one of my dearest friends has got a 27-year-old nonverbal son, and he's got his little post on the wall, and he's got what he does. And she created a vest for him, and he likes to rock, and she put that vest out on Amazon and sells them, and it says "Autistic, be nice," and because he's nonverbal. But I mean, he's got his little post on the wall. He'll go out there and he'll walk back and forth in the neighborhood, and everybody knows who he is. So even if they're nonverbal, they've got cues to tell you what it is that they want to do. So on this resources page, what I'm going to say is that if you're from other states, I apologize that a lot of this will just look like gibberish to you. But what I want this page to be for you is hope that there really are versions of this in every state. And even in Alabama, my sister just got 20 hours a week for her daughter, which is great, right? But California is the gold standard. They've got IHSS, in-home supportive services. Rhonda, are you able to take advantage of that yet, or did they have to be 18?
Nope. Usually they start with IHSS. Well, it depends on their needs. So they'll come out and they'll assess, but they can start them as early as 3. A lot of times when they do the assessment, if it's a normal, like you're the parent, you should be changing their diaper, and 3 is not abnormal to be in diapers still, they say, then they won't give you funds for that. But once they start to get a little bit older, usually about 5, especially for autism, they start to really look at, okay, you're doing a lot for this child. You're going extra above and beyond. You're having to do all these extra measures. So this is not typical. So we'll give you funding for that. We'll basically pay you and support you, because as a parent, you can't go to work. You can't have a job. And that's what a lot of our families have to deal with. One parent has to stay home. And so IHSS is a wonderful program that will support you in supporting your child. So yeah, it's available before they're adults.
Great. And I would say that if you're not familiar, if you're in California and not familiar with the Regional Center program, do get involved with the Regional Center early, because they've got the children do age out. If you don't get them in before they age, I think it's like 19, they'll never qualify. But once they're in the Regional Center, they're in it for life. So should you leave the planet before they do, they'll never be homeless unless they choose to hide. But if the state of California finds them, there will be a home for them somewhere. And I know this because I've, as a recruiter, have worked with some of the homes in the state. There's also a program called the 055 Tailored Day Program, which was created based on the Lanterman Act. And that is, you can have a tailored day program or you can have other day programs for your child, but it gives them up to 30 hours a week where they can go out and be involved with other people with disabilities. Or the tailored day program is what Aubrey has been in, where you take their goals and you help them community integrate and you help them meet their goals. And of course, it's hard to community integrate right now with COVID, but it's still possible to do, depending upon the tailored day program that you go with. And of course, you mentioned it too, Rhonda, that respite is kind of the first stop. It's the first thing that you go to. And then supportive living services or independent living services are also an option in California. And I want to state that there is a group there in Cali that they are helping parents to, which this is out of my means for sure, but they're helping parents to purchase homes. And then they're pulling the resources together. I'm just gonna look and see if I can find them. They sent me an email today. The name of the group is Clearwater Ranch. And if you will Google Clearwater Ranch, it is about permanent ownership. I love these people. Aubrey can't live in that setting, but I think it's a great model. And if they're trying to help these kids to forever have a home in the state of California, because as y'all know, it's really difficult to manage housing if you're renting. It's tough. Is that all that I had? Oh yeah, so I have this video that I wanted to share. So I left Aubrey in September and it's been great for me. But a couple of days before I was to do this presentation, I creeped on her Facebook page and found this video. And I just felt like it was really fitting because it helped me to know I made the right decision. I don't know where that arrow is going to land, and she might land back at my house at some point. But for now, we're both on our journeys, and it feels great. It was difficult, but it feels great. Beautiful Sonoma County sunset. She got to go to the beach. It's a great day.
Okay, thank you very much. That video was, yeah, that's an amazing video. I'm glad you included that because that, I know last year you made me cry, so I'm trying not to cry again, but that was, it's just kind of says it all. She's able to, you know, almost be free with the birds. That's beautiful. Thank you. And even though you said you're not good with PowerPoints, I thought that was a very good PowerPoint. Lot of great information, a lot of great tips. So I thought that was very well done. So thank you for putting that together and getting those resources on a nice clear list for everybody to kind of look at and see and maybe take notes at home. I
Vicki,
did have one question. Jason, go ahead.
Sorry, I just so you have a lot of good resources. I'm really impressed. It actually made me think about a lot and made me worry a little bit. But I mean, it's a part of life. You're ahead of us, you know, and we need to take that experience from you. But you know, how can we get a hold of you, and if you have any questions in more detail and stuff like that? Because you know, I always try to think ahead, and I am worried, you know, like you know, the great analogy, the bow and the arrow thing. I have a lot of weird analogies, and that resembles some things I do. Mine's like, if I'm running forward, don't look behind you because you can't get to where you want to. If you get, so it's always like different analogies. That was a great analogy. I love that one. But I do, you know, bring up some stuff I've been worried about. I've heard from other parents that have older children, and I need to know more and be prepared. So how would we be able to get a hold of you?
Great question, and I had intended to give that to people. I set up an email address for that purpose. It's aubvic2100@gmail.com.
100@gmail.com. I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay, I put that in the chat for everybody who wants to write that down. And yeah, my daughter's 10, and
also, I also do. I laugh because I try Instagram. So my Instagram handle is at epilepsy mama bear. Yeah.
So what was,
Welcome.
Okay.
Invite
We
me.
had one question, Vicki, and then we have to actually end this panel because they need to go to the final message. So there was one question that I wanted to make sure that we addressed. Something about electrolytes. Did you mention electrolytes at some point?
Oh, yes, I did. If the electrolytes go off, epileptics go off too. And
So the question was, can you share your experience that led to your focus on electrolytes for your daughter?
absolutely. We
And
noticed.
kind of make it a little quick.
Yep, when we went to the hospital, she did better because she got her electrolytes in the bag. So she drinks them every morning. It's part of her concoction. And if you've got questions about her whole regimen, feel free to email me. I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate that. So I wanted to just real quick talk again about my nonprofit Whole Plant Access for Autism. I was asked to speak on that again real quick. We have a support group on Facebook. We have about 26,000 members. We're also, like I said, a nonprofit. So we have a website, WPA4A, the number 4, a.org, WPA4A.org. You can find us there. You can email us if you have questions. If you need help from anything with special needs. I know we say autism, but honestly, we don't shut anybody out. We help everybody. You know, with cannabis questions or just general support. We're there for you because we're all in the same boat. So you're welcome to join us. You're welcome to be part of that group. You know, it's there for you guys. So again, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on our website. And I want to thank everybody. Again, we ran out of time for questions, but I think you guys did an awesome job. So many resources. I loved your stories. You know, I wish that we could just, you know, take a magic pill for our kids and they could just be healed and life would be great. But, you know, I think this all brings us closer together, and, you know, we're all doing the same thing, fighting for our kids. And we just have to remember to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our kids. And we have to, you know, look for the future, for transitioning to adulthood. We have to keep that in mind as our kids get older, that there's a lot of work for us still to go to do for our kids. It's unfortunately or fortunately never-ending job, and you know, it's amazing what you guys did. Thank you again, Vicki. Thank you again, Jason. I appreciate your time, and thank you for everybody here at Americans for Safe Access for putting this together. For everybody that attended, thank you guys. And with that, I will leave it for the closing message.
Great to meet you, Jason. Thanks so much, Rhonda.
great to meet you. Thank you. Nice meeting you,
Thank you,
Rhonda. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Medical Cannabis Neurological Symposium. I want to say a big thank you to our Sonoma ASA chapter and to the ASA staff who helped put this together. And of course, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Ease, BASA, Rise, Caniatrics, and CanaSafe. We wouldn't be able to put on events like this without your support. And for anyone who wants to sponsor these sort of events in the future, please reach out to us. We have many of these events coming up. And I also want to say a huge thank you to our speakers today. Such amazing information. And thank you to the patients who shared their stories. Really, the science is fascinating and so exciting, but it really doesn't mean much without the stories of patients to back up that science and really create a human face to why we need to allow science to push this issue forward. And then, of course, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the essential workers out there, both in healthcare and in the cannabis industry. I know that you're putting your life and your family's lives at risk every day, going to work to serve patients and to help us during this scary time. So thank you so much, and we're all thinking of you and praying for your health and obviously a quick end to this horrible pandemic. This issue is so important and so interesting, but the reality of a lot of this neurological science is that we've known this for quite some time, and political issues have kept us from being able to move the science and move, more importantly, product development forward to meet the needs of patients. After 18 years of working in American Safe Access and over 24 years of medical cannabis laws, we still really have a huge diversity in what these laws look like and who's served. And I don't need to tell patient advocates like yourself how frustrating it is, to know that you don't have to only advocate at the state level to pass a law, but really that's just the beginning. Then you have to really get in there and start working with cities and working with the administration to create product safety protocols. And then you have to get into schools to make sure that juvenile patients can have access during the school day. It's a lot of work, and I'm so grateful to all of you who, unlike just coming here on a Saturday to learn more about the science of cannabis, I know that you're also going to PTA meetings, that you're going to legislative hearings, that you're going to city council hearings, and it seems like it'll never end. But we have made so much progress, and there are millions of patients in the United States that have access. But until we change federal law and we have companies that are willing to create standardized products that can go through a research protocol, we're really going to have to continue to do this work, both on the front lines as well as keep our eye on the vision long term. And this is really where Americans for Safe Access comes in. Again, I want to thank our members and our sponsors for allowing us to hire such an exciting staff that really do amazing work every day to create resources for us to stay informed and to educate our policymakers. At this time, we have a crazy pandemic going on. We have an election that's probably going to be one of the most controversial elections in history. It's very important to remember that every vote is a medical cannabis vote. And what I mean by that is that, yes, there are some states that have initiative processes, where you'll find some type of cannabis law on the ballot. But as many of you know, the work of creating safe access comes down to city council members at times. It comes down to federal legislation. And so every person who represents you at one time will be asked to weigh in on cannabis policies. And so this is where you come in. Before the vote, you need to educate all of those representatives that are going to be your voice at the city council, at the state level, and in Congress to make sure that they understand what's needed to move the ball forward for medical cannabis, and that you're watching them, and as a constituent, you want to be represented. It's an interesting time also that because of all of the news around the cannabis industry and how much money it's made, a lot of people think that we've won, that the movement for medical cannabis is over. And I know for many of you, that it's far from over, but that makes our work even extra hard. That people don't see the crises that we see. They don't see children having to make a decision about being able to stay in school because they can't use their medication. They're not seeing individuals suffering in hospice because they can't use cannabis in those facilities, or people getting kicked out of public housing because they can't use their medicine there. And this is where patient advocates come in, and where your stories come in and are so important. But we need to hear those not just in forums where we're educating each other, but we need to get those messages out to elected officials that will be representing you. And also, it's important to remember, I know I say this a lot and people laugh, but elected officials are people, and there's a lot of issues that they're looking at. And we can't just assume because someone says, yes, they support medical cannabis, that they really understand the details. And that is where the work of a patient advocate really comes in, that it's really up to us to bring the best information to these elected officials and really show them what's working, what isn't, and most important, what is the solution to move that forward. And as ASA members, I know you all get alerts for city council meetings, for weighing in on everything from FDA public comments to calling your members of Congress and asking them to vote for legislation. But this work won't be over until we ultimately change federal law. And so let's keep our eye on the prize over the next few years, and let's remember that we constantly, as patient advocates, we need to ask for what we want, knowing that we're probably going to get a little less than that, and that defines the work that we do for the next year. So again, I just want to say thank you all so much for spending your Saturday with us. Again, thank you so much to the speakers who have enlightened us and brought new information. Thank you to all the volunteers and sponsors that made this happen. And let's remember to stay connected. I know it's a scary time, and there's a lot of uncertainty both in healthcare and in our political system. But this is where we need to draw on the strength of our mission and the clarity of what it is we've been fighting for so long. And let's remember that we've been fighting with advocates alongside of us since the 70s, and we're definitely closer to ultimate victory. But we need to keep a clear vision in mind and make sure that we're articulating that vision to those who are in power that can make those changes for us. So have a great rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you very soon.